My name is Simone Varga. I'm 34 years old. And the Wednesday evening my mother-in-law sent that trip itinerary to the family group was when I finally understood that being included in a family and being considered part of it are two entirely different things. The message came in at 6:22 p.m. I was at my desk in the home study, finishing a set of construction drawings I needed to send before the morning, when my phone lit up with a notification. My mother-in-law, Eleonora, had created a new group called Christmas Lakeside 2024 and added 8 people to it. My husband Peter, his sister Borbula, Borbula's husband and their 2 children, Eleonora's sister Catalin, and my father-in-law Tibor. 8 people. My name was not there. The message read, "Everything confirmed. Villa is booked December 22nd to 29th. Flights are sorted. See attached packing list." I can't wait to see everyone. Below the text were 3 attachments: a flight itinerary, a villa confirmation document, and a 2-page packing list formatted with the family's names in separate columns. My name was not in any of them. I was looking at it on a forwarded screenshot sent to me by Borbula, who had added a single line above the image. Did you know about this? Borbula is Peter's older sister and has always treated me with a kind of careful consideration, not warmth, exactly, but a deliberate fairness that I have always appreciated. She is aware that something is off in the dynamic between me and her mother and has never been the source of it. Her forward was both a question and, I thought, a small act of solidarity. I read Eleonora's message twice. I read the packing list once. 8 names in 8 columns, none of them mine. Then I texted Eleonora directly. I kept it short. I notice I'm not on the Christmas trip. Is that intentional? Her reply came in 11 minutes. The kids need a calm trip this year. You know how it gets. I read that twice. I set my phone screen down on the desk. I looked at the section of construction drawing I had been working on before the notification came, a window assembly detail that still needed 2 dimensions and a note. I added the dimensions. I added the note. Then I opened my laptop, navigated to my travel rewards account, and looked at the booking history. The villa rental, a 7-night property in the Lake District, balance of $7,200 still outstanding, had been reserved 3 weeks earlier using my travel card as the payment guarantee. The flights, 4 round-trip tickets from our city to the regional airport, had been booked using my rewards points, redeemed from an account I had accumulated through 6 years of work travel. My card. My points. My name. Not on the list. I closed the laptop. I sent the drawing. Then I went to bed. I am an architect at a mid-sized firm where I have worked for 7 years. The work is, in its nature, a sustained exercise in holding a large number of variables in coherent relationship to each other: structural requirements, material constraints, client preferences, code compliance, site conditions, budget limits. You cannot work in one area of a project without understanding how that area connects to every other area. The floor plan affects the structural grid. The structural grid affects the facade. The facade affects the energy model. Every decision has downstream consequences, and the discipline of the work is learning to trace those consequences before you make the decision rather than after. My project lead, Cora Whitfield, who serves as the firm's design director and has been in the profession for 20 years, has a specific and hard-won clarity about how projects succeed and fail. She tells the newer architects on our team that the most dangerous phase of any project is not the construction phase, when problems are visible and expensive, but the design development phase, when problems are invisible and cheap to fix. The mistake that costs nothing to correct at week 3 costs a great deal at week 30. What you need, she says, is the discipline to look at the thing you are building with your eyes open while it is still small enough to change. In my 3rd year at the firm, I worked on a residential project with a senior architect named Marcus Fenley, a careful, deliberate practitioner who had been doing this work for 15 years longer than I had. He is the kind of professional who does not move to the next decision until the current decision is fully interrogated, which makes him slower than some of the other architects on the team and more reliably right. The client was a family who wanted an open-plan home with a clear visual connection between the living space and the garden. The design was clean, the clients loved the drawings, and Marcus and I both thought we had it. What we caught late in design development, later than we should have, Marcus acknowledged directly in the project debrief with Cora, was that the structural column required to support the second floor landed precisely in the sight line between the living room and the garden that the clients had described as the project's central purpose. The column was technically required. The column made the design functionally meaningless. We caught it at week 14 and corrected it, which cost us 2 weeks and a redesigned structural bay. Marcus said afterward that it was the most useful mistake he had made in years. It reminded him that a drawing that no one has looked at critically is just a proposal, and a proposal is not a building. I have spent the past 2 years applying this framework to my marriage without quite naming it as such. My husband Peter is the second of 3 children and has, since I have known him, operated in a comfortable assumption that the family as his mother has arranged it is the correct arrangement. This is not malice. It is the particular unself-consciousness of a person who has never had to assert their place in their family of origin because their place was never in question. He grew up in a house where his position was given. He has, in the 7 years of our marriage, been slow to understand that mine was not. I want to be fair to Peter because fairness matters when you are describing someone you love. He is not a man who participates in the exclusion actively. What he does, and what he has always done, is fail to interrupt it. The distinction is real, and it matters, and it is also, after 7 years, insufficient. A plan with an error in it is still an error, whether the error was committed deliberately or simply not caught. The result is the same. Peter's relationship with his mother is organized around a deep and genuine affection that expresses itself largely through compliance. He does not disagree with Eleonora in front of others. He does not challenge her arrangements. He has, I think, genuinely not seen what I have seen for my position, which is the position of the person whose inclusion is consistently optional because from his position everything has always looked correct. He has been inside the boundary his whole life. He has had no reason to look at the boundary itself. What the Thursday morning phone call from Danny did, among other things, was make the boundary visible to him in a way that my 7 years of descriptions had not. When Eleonora called him at 9:47 a.m. asking whose card it was and he knew it was mine, he knew he had asked me to make the bookings, he knew he had not told his mother. The system that had been running without scrutiny for 7 years became visible to him as a system. A plan he had been inside without reading. I am not angry at him in the way that story sometimes goes. I am something more complicated. I am the person who had to make an error visible by holding it up to the light, and who is now, with some patience and a great deal of directness, working with her husband to read the plan with his eyes open. Eleonora Varga is 61 years old. She is a woman of genuine capability and genuine warmth. Directed along channels, she has determined herself. She organizes, provides, plans, and manages with the kind of comprehensive thoroughness that would be impressive in any professional context. The family's holidays, its celebrations, its collective memory, all of these run through her. She is, in the truest sense, the center of the Varga family's operational infrastructure. What she has never fully incorporated into that infrastructure is me. I joined the family at 27, when Peter and I married after 3 years together. The marriage was welcome to Eleonora in the sense that she approved of Peter's choice. I was not unwelcome in the sense that she would have preferred someone else. What I was, in the specific taxonomy of her family structure, was a daughter-in-law, a category with a defined perimeter. Daughters-in-law are adjacent. They attend. They do not belong. They are the beneficiaries of family events. They are not the architects of them. The shape of this exclusion was not dramatic. It was the accumulation of small calibrations over 7 years. In our first year of marriage, Eleonora organized a birthday trip for Peter's father that she described to Peter as a family surprise and informed me of the day before as a courtesy. In our 3rd year, she created a Varga family photo album service and added all 3 children and their spouses, except me, an omission I discovered when Peter mentioned it and corrected it by adding me himself, without telling me it had happened until a week later. In year 5, when the family was deciding where to spend Easter, the decision was made on a call between Eleonora, Peter, and Borbala that I did not know was happening until Peter told me the conclusion. He had not thought to include me in the call. It had not occurred to him. This is what I mean when I say the exclusion was consistent. It was not hostile. It was simply a default. I was the person informed of outcomes. not the person consulted on decisions. In year 6, I started raising these things with Peter more directly, naming them as a pattern rather than as individual incidents. He listened. He acknowledged the pattern. He said he would do better. Some things improved marginally. The fundamental structure did not change because changing the fundamental structure would have required Peter to have a different kind of conversation with his mother than he had ever had, and he did not know how to initiate it, and I had not yet found the way to require it. The Christmas trip was the clearest instance yet, and the most specific, because this time she had not accidentally omitted me. She had created the group, added 8 people, and sent the confirmation. The omission was a decision. And this time, unlike every previous occasion, she had forgotten something material. I want to be precise about the travel account because it matters. My firm requires significant travel for client engagement and site visits. In 7 years with the company, I have logged enough work trips to accumulate a substantial rewards balance, points from flights, hotels, ground transport, every work-related transaction that ran through the card for 7 years. The card is issued in my name. It is linked to my personal credit account, not to any joint account I share with Peter. I have used it for 3 family vacations and 1 work-related trip to a conference in a city I had never visited before and have not returned to since. The points are mine in the way that anything accumulated through your own labor over 7 years is yours. Eleonora had first mentioned a possible Christmas trip in April. I had been at the kitchen table at her house for a Sunday dinner when she raised it, a lake property she had seen listed, December dates, the whole family together for the first time since the previous year's Easter. I said it sounded lovely. I said I could look into flights when the fares dropped, since I knew which tools to use for that. 8 months before Christmas, Peter asked me to make the bookings. He forwarded me the villa coordinator's contact and the preferred flight dates. I called Ingrid Hoffman at the rental service, confirmed the December dates, and provided my card details for the guarantee and the outstanding balance. I spent 40 minutes on the points booking platform finding the best redemption value for 4 round-trip tickets. I sent Peter the confirmation references. He said thank you. He did not tell his mother that I had made the bookings. I did not know that he had not told her. I found out when Borbala forwarded me the group message, and I was not in it. My card. My points. My name. Not on the list. The Thursday morning after Eleanor's message, my phone rang at 9:14 a.m. But before I get to that call, I want to say something about the bathroom mirror, because it is the moment I keep returning to when I think about what I was actually doing in the hours between Eleanor's message and Danny's call. It was late, past midnight. I had finished the construction drawings, sent them, and gone to bed. I had lain awake for a long time with the quality of wakefulness that is not about not being tired, but about having a question your mind will not set down. At some point I got up and went to the bathroom. I stood at the sink and looked at my own face in the mirror, not in distress, not crying, nothing like that. Just looking. It is something I do sometimes when I am working out what I actually think about something as opposed to what I am performing thinking about it. The mirror is a useful surface because it is honest, and because you cannot pretend to it. What I saw was a person who had been making herself useful for 8 months, for 7 years, for the full length of a marriage, in ways that had become ambient and invisible, and who had been told, that evening, with 11 words, the kids need a calm trip this year, that her absence was a feature. I stood there for a few minutes with both hands on the edge of the sink. Then I went back to my desk, opened the travel account, navigated to the villa booking, and placed the payment authorization on review hold. It was 11:47 p.m. I noted the time because I note times. I went to bed. The call from Danny Reyes came at 9:14 the next morning. Danny was efficient and professional in the specific way that people who manage complicated travel bookings are professional. She communicated clearly, confirmed details twice before acting on them, and did not assume she knew more than she did. She was calling because the villa's payment authorization had changed status overnight. The card on file for the outstanding balance, the remaining $7,200 due before the 30-day window, had been flagged for review. She needed confirmation from the cardholder before the balance could be processed. I'd like to hold the authorization, I told her. I'll need to confirm the party details before the balance clears. She noted that in the record and asked if there was a secondary contact she should follow up with for the booking confirmation. I gave her Eleonora's name and number. I thanked Danny and ended the call. I made coffee. I went to my desk. Eleonora called Peter at 9:47 a.m. I was 2 rooms away and did not hear the conversation. I gathered its shape from what Peter told me afterward. Eleonora had received a call from the travel agency, from Danny, about the villa payment. She had told Danny there must be an error, that the booking was confirmed, and she had the confirmation document. Danny had explained that the card on file had a review hold placed by the cardholder, and that without authorization from the cardholder the balance could not be processed before the deadline. Eleonora had asked whose card it was. Danny had given my name. Eleonora had told Peter that she did not understand. She had asked him what had happened. She had not asked whether she might have contributed to something happening. Peter knocked on the study door at 10:03 a.m. I was at my desk with a set of site plan revisions open on the screen. He sat down in the chair across from me, the client consultation chair, which I had never used for a conversation like this, and looked at me with the expression of a man who had spent the past 16 minutes in transit between 2 difficult conversations and had not found a comfortable position in either. "The villa payment," he said. "Yes," I said. "Danny called Mom." "I know." He looked at his hands, then back at me. He was not doing this to manage the situation. He was doing it because he was genuinely uncertain what he was supposed to say and did not want to say the wrong thing. I recognized the posture. I had seen it for 7 years. Peter is a careful man who does not often encounter situations where his carefulness has failed to prevent something, and when he does, there is a particular quality to his stillness, the stillness of a person waiting for the correct response to arrive. I waited. I was not going to assist with that. "Simone," he started. "Peter." My voice was the voice I use when I need a conversation to stay on its actual subject rather than migrating toward comfort. "I booked the villa 8 months ago. I booked the flights 8 months ago. I used my card and my points because you asked me to, and your mother sent the trip details to 8 people last night and left my name off." He did not say anything. "I'm not canceling the trip," I said. "I'm holding the authorization until we have a conversation about what happened. That's the only change." She didn't mean. She replied to my direct message. I said, "The kids need a calm trip this year." That's a considered response to a direct question. That's not an oversight. He was quiet for a moment. The study was very still. Outside, I could hear the street, a neighbor's dog, the ordinary sounds of a Thursday morning. "What do you need?" he said finally. Not "what do you want?" "What do you need?" which was the most honest question he had asked me in a long time. "I need you to call her," I said. "Not a text. A call. And I need the conversation to be about what she said to me, not about the booking logistics. I am not holding the trip hostage. I am holding a conversation that should have happened before she sent that message." He nodded once. Slow. "And I need to be on the group," I said. Not added after the fact. On the group that makes decisions. He nodded again. I turned back to my screen. "I'll authorize the payment once we've spoken to her. The deadline is still 10 days out." Peter left the study. I heard him on the phone 10 minutes later, in the kitchen, his voice at the careful register he uses when he is navigating something he finds difficult. I did not go to listen. I was already back in the site plan. The conversation with Eleonora happened the following Sunday at her house. I want to be accurate about what it was, and was not. It was not an apology in the form I might have wanted if I had been thinking about it as a form of satisfaction. Eleonora does not apologize in direct terms. She reorganizes. This is not unique to her. It is a quality common to people who have spent a long time being the structural center of a family's operations, because apologizing requires the acknowledgement that you have caused a problem, and people who see themselves as the solution to problems have difficulty making that acknowledgement without it destabilizing something in their self-concept. She had spoken to Peter twice during the week. I do not know exactly what was said in those conversations because I was not party to them and did not ask for a full account. What I knew driving to her house on Sunday was that she knew the facts, whose card, whose points, whose name had been omitted, and that she had had 6 days to think about them. Her house is a 2-story brick house in a suburb 20 minutes from ours, the house where Peter and his siblings grew up. The kitchen is where Eleonora operates, the table where she plans, the counter where she cooks, the room that is most fully hers. I had sat at that table for 7 years of Sunday dinners. I had always sat there as a guest. This was the first time I sat there as a party to a negotiation. Her husband Tibor was in the next room. I could hear the television. Peter was beside me. Eleonora sat across the table with her hands folded in front of her, which is the posture she adopts when she is in a formal mode rather than a domestic one. She was prepared. I was also prepared, but differently, not with a speech, with a position. She began by acknowledging that she should have included me in the group. She said it as a fact rather than an apology. I should have included you. Then she said she had not thought about the card. She said she had not known I had made the bookings. She had assumed Peter had handled them, which told me something about the information Peter had and had not conveyed. I let her finish. When she was done, I said, "I want to say something that is not about the trip." She looked at me. "I've been in this family for 7 years," I said. "I have been to every holiday, contributed to every plan, attended every event. For most of that time I have been present but not consulted. That is a difference I have noticed and not raised, and I am raising it now." Her hands on the table were still. Her eyes were on me with the full attention of someone who was deciding how to receive something they had not expected in the specific form it was arriving. "I am not asking to be the center of the family's planning," I said. "I am asking to be inside the boundary of it. Not adjacent. Inside." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at Peter. Then back at me. "I understand," she said. 2 words. Not an apology. An acknowledgement that the structure she had built had something in the wrong place, and that she had seen it clearly enough to say so. I have learned to receive those as the currency that is actually available rather than holding out for denominations that are not in circulation. I said, "Thank you." We had coffee. Tibor came in from the next room. He had heard enough to know the conversation had shifted registers, and his entry was well-timed in the way Tibor's entries tend to be. He is a quiet man who has been married to Eleonora for 34 years and has developed, over those years, a precise sense of when a room needs him and when it does not. He poured himself a cup, sat at the end of the table, and asked Peter about a sports result from the previous day. The conversation moved. The subject did not return. I stayed for another hour. I helped clear the coffee cups. Eleonora said, as I was putting on my coat to leave, that she would add me to the Christmas group. I said thank you. She nodded once in a way that was not warm but was direct, which from Eleonora is the register in which she takes things seriously. In the car, driving home, Peter was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I should have told her it was your card." "Yes," I said. "I should have said something a long time ago. About all of it." "Yes," I said again. We drove the rest of the way without talking. It was not the silence of things unresolved, but the silence of 2 people sitting with what had just been named. It was the most honest silence we had had in a year. The villa payment cleared the following Tuesday. All 8 names remained on the booking, with a 9th added. Mine. The booking confirmation arrived in my email with my name in the guest list, which is a small thing, and was not a small thing. The Christmas trip happened. We flew out on the 22nd, which was a clear morning with a kind of low winter light that makes everything look more deliberate than it is. The villa was on a lake in the mountains, a stone building with a wide terrace facing the water, surrounded by trees that were bare in December in a way that made the lake visible through them in all directions. It was the kind of place that is beautiful in the specific way that places are beautiful when you have had to work to arrive in them. I was there for all 7 days. I was on the group text that organized dinners, day trips, and the question of who was responsible for the Christmas Eve meal. I was in the photographs that Borbala took on the last day, standing on the terrace in the afternoon light with the lake behind us. I was in the family group still, the one Eleonora had renamed after the trip, Varga Family 2025. Eleonora and I cooked one dinner together during the week. It was not a warm dinner in the sense of deep reconciliation. Warmth between us has always been calibrated, and I do not think that will change entirely. It was a functional dinner, organized and competent, in which we each did the part of it we were suited for. She made the main, I made the dessert. We did not discuss the earlier weeks. We did not need to. The structure had been revised, and we were both operating inside it. I will take that. My husband has not fully explained the situation to his mother in the terms I would have used. I have made my peace with the fact that Peter explains things in the terms available to him, which are different from mine. What matters is the outcome, not the explanation. I have spent a significant part of my professional life learning to read a building as a set of relationships, rather than a set of objects. A wall is not just a wall. It is the edge of a space, the boundary between uses, the thing that defines where one room ends and another begins. A door is not just a door. It is a threshold, a decision point, the moment when the plan either invites or restricts movement. You can have a technically correct set of drawings, every measurement accurate, every material specified, and still produce a building that does not work because the relationships between the parts have not been thought through. The Varga family is technically correct in many ways. It functions. It gathers. It organizes its holidays with impressive thoroughness. What it had not thought through, until a travel agent called on a Thursday morning about a card authorization hold, was the relationship between its stated membership and its actual membership. I had been technically in the family for 7 years. I had not been structurally in it. The gap between those two things is not visible until someone draws it to scale, until someone puts it on paper and says, here is where the boundary actually is, and here is where it should be, and they are not the same line. What I drew to scale, in the conversation at Eleonora's kitchen table, was the correction. Not a demolition. Not a complete rebuild. A single wall in the wrong position, moved to where it should have been from the beginning. Marcus Fenley, the senior architect who had taught me the most about the design development phase, told me once that the hardest corrections to make are the ones where the error has been in the plans so long that everyone has stopped seeing it as an error. They have learned to navigate around it. They have built their habits of movement around the obstacle rather than addressing it. The correction, when it finally comes, requires everyone to relearn a path they thought they already knew. I think about this when I think about 7 years of Sunday dinners at Eleonora's table. She had never actively decided to exclude me. She had simply never fully included me, and the family had learned to navigate around that gap so smoothly that no one had named it until the moment the gap became impossible to ignore, until the card was declined, and the booking was on hold, and a travel agent named Danny Reyes was on the phone, asking who the cardholder was. The answer, it turned out, was the person who had not been on the list. Not every structural problem requires demolition. Some require a single conversation, held in the right room, at the right table, with the drawing open in front of both of you, and the light coming in at the right angle to show you what was always there, if only someone had been willing to look directly at it. If you made it to the end of this story, the moment I keep returning to is the Sunday kitchen table. Not the phone call from Danny, not Peter's knock on the study door. The moment Eleonora looked at me across her own kitchen and said, I understand. 2 words. Not an apology. An acknowledgement that the structure she had built had a wall in the wrong place, and that she had seen it. I want to ask you something specific. Has there been a moment when you stopped quietly enabling something that wasn't working, not in anger, not as a tactic, and found that the stopping was the only language the other person could hear? Leave that in the comments. I read everyone. If this story stayed with you, please like it. It tells me to keep making these. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and hit the bell so it finds you. I'll see you in the next story. This is an original fictional adaptation created for entertainment purposes only. All names, characters, events, and settings are invented.